It's always fun going last. I can tell this is an important evening because most of you are still here. And I have not seen any kind of mass exodus, which really emphasizes the crucial nature of this conversation beginning. I, in case you can't tell, am an old, fat, white guy. I am probably the least threatening person that could ever be pulled over in a traffic stop. I can't get out of the car and outrun anybody. To top it off, I drive a Prius. So I'm not going to outdrive a police officer. And yet I'm scared. My wife will tell you I am a lousy driver on top of everything else who tailgates and goes too fast, except for the past 7 months. Because I'm afraid of being pulled over, and I have gone through in my head exactly what I would do if I were pulled over to avoid getting shot. And if I'm an old fat white guy driving a Prius, how much more scared will other people be? Now, I've met with the mayor. We've organized a group of clergy to begin dealing with this from a more spiritual place. And when we met with the mayor, and when I've met with others, something's been bothering me about why things are blowing up as much as possible. In part, it's what David said. We haven't decided to be a community of compassion, a community that cares about each and every one of its citizens. It's like Debbie said. People are serving us, and we're not taking the responsibility that each and every police officer that goes out there is our responsibility, and we've sent them there on each and every call. Because I'm not going to go. All right, not just because they can outrun me. But what I haven't heard, and what is crucial, the first step in order to begin to bring this community back together, are apologies. Nobody has said, "I'm sorry," from a sincere and deep place. One of my greatest fears in the world, especially the way I drive, is killing another human being. I never want to be in that place. My father, who served in the military, killed people, and he never got over it. I can't imagine that any police officer who has killed another person, justified or not, doesn't feel the pain and doesn't want to apologize, doesn't feel sorry for what he or she did. And yet, we live in a society that discourages that. That if you apologize for something, all of a sudden you're fully responsible for it. Not only are you going to get sued, you're going to get thrown in jail. Studies have shown that when it comes to medical malpractice, even in the most horrific cases, if the physician, the nurses, the hospital, whoever is involved from the medical community looks and sits with the family and honestly and deeply says, "I'm sorry your loved one died. I'm sorry I left that sponge inside." The rate of medical malpractice lawsuits goes down, and the amount of settlements go down. And some states, some communities have even taken the step, which I think is important, to pass laws that protect physicians, nurses, and hospital administrators from an apology being used against them as part of a lawsuit. Why can't we do the same thing for our police officers? Why can't we give them the protection that simply by saying, "I'm sorry, I wish this had never happened," we could protect them? Imagine the amount of healing that could occur instantly. But it's not just on the police to apologize, because as each and every one of us knows, in any conflict, in any argument, in any discussion over right and wrong and who left the toilet seat up, both parties are responsible. Perhaps one more responsible than the other, but both parties have an obligation to accept their part in the responsibility. We as a community have to accept that part of our responsibility. That we're not providing enough training and the right kind of training to our officers, so that when they're in a crisis situation, they know how to respond best and most safely for themselves and others. That when we're not providing them with the legal protection to say, "I'm sorry." And we, and I mean we, each and every person sitting in this room, every single person around this community, and as we've been reading lately around the state, and in other communities as well, keep saying, "Well, what can I do?" It's up to the city council. It's up to the mayor. It's up to the legislature. It's up to the governor. Well, you know what? It's not. We put them in those places to do the things that we need them to do to make this community a caring, compassionate community that deals with its issues of mental health, that deals with its issues of poverty, that provides the right kind of training to those we ask and send out to protect us and to help us. Those city council people, the mayor, the legislature, the governor, our national representatives, it doesn't matter. They are the people we sent there. And as someone said, God only knows who, I don't never remember this, we're a democracy. We get the people in office that we deserve because we put them there. And if they're not dealing with the issues in ways that we think will help heal this community, we have an obligation to tell them. And then every 2 to 3 or 4 years, if they're not following through on their obligation to fulfill our obligation, then we have to change them. It's not about money. It's about morality. It's about being ethical. So how do we heal this community? 1, we honestly look at each other and go, "I'm in pain." 2, we acknowledge that pain and begin to take positive steps from both sides to correct the issues that are underlying these problems. 3, we make an ongoing commitment to do that. 4, we look at the other person and say, "I'm sorry. And these are the steps I'm willing to take to make it better so it never happens again." I wish we could live in a world where a police officer never had to shoot anybody. I loved your poem, Hakeem. I did. I thought that was a great oath. It's not the reality. There are times it's justified. There's times it's their life at stake as well, or one of our lives at stake. But that's the exception. And it should always be the exception. So sit down with each other. Sit down with our leaders. Sit down with our police. And they are ours because we send them out there every day. And look each other in the eye and say, I'm sorry, and I'm going to try and do better to make this a compassionate, caring community and fix the underlying issues that cause spikes in crime, that are mental health and poverty and hopelessness. Thank you.